My father called me ungrateful after I cared for him during a medical crisis, so I exposed his affair.
As you should.
As you should.
He's ungrateful.
Fits the crime. This whole thing happened a year prior, but the repercussions are still happening. And I hope they continue until the day that tard dies.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
This will be long, so buckle in. Now this is a story. Background. Growing up, me and my sister had no love towards our father whatsoever. I'm not going to bore you with the details of a boozaic, violent man, but there are a few details that come to mind. So, by the way, this comes from Thunderkirk on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, when my sister got accepted into a much better but also further high school than our local one, she moved immediately and rarely visited. So she's no longer there. We were 10 years apart and I was 4 at the time. I grew up resenting her for leaving me to deal with this BS all by myself. But now I understand better and we're on good terms.
Yeah, I feel like when you get older, you realize, oh, we were both in a bad situation.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, also like I saw this meme of a guy going off to like college and leaving his like abusive household, and then there's and then he's like going off, and then he looks down, and it's his little brother like looking up at him.
So a meme?
A meme. Yeah, it was like a sad meme.
Like a comic?
No, it was like a little like TikTok video. But yeah, no, I think that's like, it's tough to like leave like a sibling all alone to deal with it alone.
Yeah.
But now I understand better and we're on good terms. My local factory was so big that it supported my whole town. Virtually everyone worked there, so everyone knew each other. My parents too. But then it was purchased by the Defense Ministry and decided to cut off anyone without at least a high school degree. My mother was let go, and this was after she'd had me for 4 months. So basically, like everyone in this town
is losing
their jobs, including OP's mother. My father, however, made it until retirement and was granted military status. Basically, they gave him an honorable rank, so his pension would almost double, but also you'd have to act accordingly because, in terms of speaking, you're military personnel now. My childhood was an absolute nightmare, so needless to say, I turned out to be an absolute mess. Anger management and mental instability are notably the worst, and I'm still working on them. Well, when I turned 18, I enlisted. I feel like I'm confused by that because it's like you had this like very hard upbringing, seemingly maybe like spurred by the military. Like, I'm going to enlist too.
Well, I mean, if it's what you know.
It's true.
And also you get benefits from it.
Yeah.
And if you've had kind of that hard life and you don't have that support system, a lot of people do tend to go into the military to get that.
Yeah. Military does support you unless it kills you.
Until you're out of the military.
Until you're out of the military, and then it will just push you on the streets. 2 major benefits. It didn't cost money, and I could never come home if I didn't want to. For me, it was literally a highway out of hell. Fast forward 3 years later, I got an honorable discharge. Turns out I had mental problems, actual mental problems. Who would have known? I got a bulk load of money and even more in the following months when they were able to process my military insurance. Came home to find my town incredibly underwhelming. And my father hadn't changed a bit, and this father was no good.
Yeah.
I took what I could and moved to the city where my sister was living. The last words my dear old dad said to me was, "You'd never make it," because apparently being discharged for a mental illness showed that I was a coward.
Your dad sucks.
Also, I think he didn't like that I was tougher than the boy who used to obey his every word that I once was when I stood up for myself more in the few weeks I stayed with him than the entire 18 first years of my life. So at least OP is now like sticking up for himself.
Yeah, he's like, you can't push me around. I went to the freaking military.
Yeah. I moved to a new environment, took up a blue-collar job. I was pretty beefy thanks to the military, and decided to pursue a career in IT, all the while taking care of my mental health. All right, now this is when it all started.
Ooh,
so now we're getting even into the deeper tea.
Juicy. Let's dive in.
We're wading into the tea. So sometime during this time, he got diagnosed with cancer. I was told it wasn't dangerous, but operations were required. My sister had actually reconciled with him, partly because of my mother, a few years prior, and would occasionally bring my niece home to visit them. She was quite successful, so she decided to pay for the whole thing. Operations, treatment, hospitals, recoveries. It was all hers. She paid for this while moving into a new house and buying her first car, though things are pretty expensive in my country. My father had a huge bank account because of his pension, but he didn't have to pay a single penny. Yeah, I'm confused why they didn't like let him pay if he had so much money.
Yeah.
Like why is there
Probably
why
like
are
some
your
sort of
kids
military
paying for it?
insurance.
But yeah, he has military insurance and he has a huge bank account pension. Like why
I
is
don't
this
know. Maybe she just like she felt responsible or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. So after a year or so of recovery, all in all, things were good. All right, so he's recovering. During this time, I was struggling with working and studying, living paycheck to paycheck, and had to rely on a social program to get treatment for my illness. I visited him after every operation, though it wasn't anything tearful. If he didn't poke me, I was fine. So apparently everything was fine. Maybe he learned from his cancer to not being such a a-hole.
Well, sometimes people have, life
Near-death experiences
and it changes them.
change people every once in a while.
Possibly.
After nearly a year of staying at my sister's house, he and my mother headed home after his doctor gave him a go. At the time, I was looking for a new job because the current one was horrible and made my mental health actually worse. And I was lucky to find one where most of my skills were transferred and I had enough time to finish my studying. One day, my mom called in tears and asked me to come home that weekend. She told me that my father had been seeing someone else while getting cancer treatment.
Dang, he's got some moves.
That's crazy.
He's
that's
that
like
movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt where Joseph Gordon-Levitt has cancer.
Yeah, and shaves his head.
Yeah, but he like uses it to flirt with people.
And it's very effective.
And it's successful.
Yeah. Or like Stephen Hawking, like flirting with his nurse and successfully cheating on his wife, even though he couldn't move. Like he could like wink an eye.
Oh, he can move something all right.
Yeah. Is that crazy?
Can't imagine.
Yeah, dude.
But this is like Uno reverse because usually the spouse has cancer and the other spouse is cheating.
Yeah.
You don't get to have cancer and cheat.
You can't do
Cancer
both.
Can't do that.
Riz. Faith Belling says cancer riz. That is true. A man's got some cancer riz. That feels weird saying. I don't know. I don't know about that. Now, I must admit, I'd not put anything behind this man, but then I thought she was paranoid. She still is, up to this day, about everything. And I resented the thought of going home on a 4-hour trip, both just for something that's utterly unimportant. So I calmed her and swept it under the rug. Fast forward a few months, I got another call, this time from my sister. She came to visit that week with my niece to inform them that she was 3 months pregnant.
Whoa.
What was supposed to be a happy union turned into an absolute crap show. Apparently, when my father left his phone unattended for a few minutes, his mistress sent him a very spicy picture, and my mom saw it pop up.
Man.
Needless to say, all heck broke loose.
What was he sending back? Just like, he's like, hey, in the hospital ward.
Yeah, I think this might be right after.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, I don't think I think he's cleared now, but I think the cheating might have begun while he was in the hospital ward.
How? How did he meet this girl?
Maybe it was his nurse. Yeah, she was sticking the chemo needle in him, and he was sticking his needle in her.
That's gotta be illegal, right?
What?
If you're like a nurse to
have spicy sleep with your patients?
I don't know. It happened a lot in Grey's Anatomy, but I
yeah,
feel like Grey's
nurses,
Anatomy is maybe
let us know. Is that illegal?
Yeah.
Needless to say, all heck broke loose. My sister said that was the first in many years that she saw my mother scream bloody stabby stab at my father.
What if you just said a lot?
And when he tried to give her the old 1-2, my sister threw herself
but she's pregnant.
in between, which prompted her husband to throw himself in between because, she's 3 months pregnant. It all ended in a very teary trip back to our city after hours of hurling insults at each other. The only good thing that came out of it was my mother somehow was able to bring his phone with her. We convinced my mother to get a divorce. Okay, at least
Good.
At least that's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds like an awful man. But she's the submissive housewife who thought divorces were worse than boiling live puppies, and I think back then she's still somewhat hoping that he'd turn around. They've been together for almost 35 years at this point, so I figured something must have been there. She didn't want it, so we dropped it and decided to cut him out for good.
Good.
Lo and behold, half a year later after the incident, my father's side of the family started to contact me. I have a strict no-call policy where the only people allowed to call me outside of work hours are my mother, my sister, her husband, 3 of my best friends, and only recently, my boyfriend.
Whoa, it's getting serious.
So to my bamboozlement, my father, his sister, my aunt, his mother, all called within a day. They suddenly acted so nice and convinced me to come visit them. All right, I'm a little suspicious. Obviously, that was all a ruse. After the incident, my father's side blamed my mother and said she should have kept it a secret and not made a mess for the family's sake. Maybe the father, OP's father, shouldn't have cheated and made a mess for the family's sake.
I hate when the person who's the messenger.
Yeah.
Don't pew the messenger. They're just trying to spread the word. If we unalive Paul Revere for letting everyone know that the British were coming,
We wouldn't have
we
America.
wouldn't have America.
America would be done.
And that is a point that stands for this story as well.
Agreed. Yeah. I can't believe they're getting mad. They're getting mad at the wrong person here.
Oh, I see.
They also disavowed me and my sister because we were ungrateful brats after we did not accept their ultimate argument. He's your father, after all.
Of course.
He's blood. He's a blood. Out of morbid curiosity, I ventured back home alone to see what it was about. Turned out they wanted to sell his house. It was on my grandmother's land back when he was about to undergo his first operation. Oh my God. We didn't know how it would turn out, so we transferred the house to my name because apparently inheriting a person's estate in my country is a living nightmare. Out of convenience, we convinced my grandmother to give me the land as well, since she was very old, 80 at the time. This was back when we were on good terms. I knew for sure they would rather gorge their eyes out. Wow, Opia is away with morbid
Colorful
words.
language.
Than follow up with any of that if it had happened a year later. Well, I smelt something in the air. Couldn't place it, but I knew it was there. So I told them nicely that I would think on it and immediately went back to faking an emergency. A plan formed when I was driving back. And that's the first time I'd been so pleased about anything. I actually cracked a smile. I'm imagining the Grinch smiling, you know,
Yeah.
very, very excited.
Mm.
Do you know what OP's dastardly plan could be?
No.
Mm.
I haven't a hoot. I
Yeah.
don't see
That-
yet.
That's
Yeah.
the face that I'm imagining right there.
Yes, it's the curling up.
Yes. Riley got it.
So OP was at their house, was talking to them about getting this. Right now we have like kind of an inheritance thing going on. Is that the issue here?
So OP was given this house, and I think the family was being all nice to
But-
OP.
But they knew it was a lot of like hassle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But, so what happened was OP's dad
Mhm.
had this house on the grandmother's land.
Yeah.
Because they were unsure what was going to happen with OP's dad, wasn't sure if he was going to live or die, they gave it to OP to kind of hold on to. And now they're like cozying up to OP to try to get the house.
And OP's like, I've got a dastardly plan.
Yeah.
A plot.
Yeah, so and also now OP has the land too. So OP has the house and the land from the grandmother.
Mhm.
So they kind of like OP owns everything. This was back when they were on good terms. And they're trying to get the house back, I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Because they wanted to sell his house.
And the mother is already dead, correct?
No, mother's not.
No.
No one's
No one's
died.
Everyone's alive.
Everyone's alive.
I'm just saying, to get out of some taxes, they should set up a trust and then put the house into the trust so they don't have to pay taxes on the house whenever someone dies.
Well, I think
I don't think this is in the U.S.
yeah, it's not in the U.S., but also I think they put it in OP's name because they knew that it would be all of this hassle and stuff if he passed away.
Yes,
like the inheritance
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they were trying to
trying
get
to
around
do the
that. But
thing,
now
yeah.
OP just has all of this.
Yeah.
So I cracked a smile and I went to my sister's immediately. My mom had been staying with her and I laid out a plan. After a year living in the city, my mom was much more open-minded and it only took a few convincing for her to agree to the plan. Faith Belling says he gives it to his mom or something. I honestly have no idea what the plan could be.
I haven't the foggiest.
The foggiest
I don't-
idea
yeah.
of this plan. So my sister contacted a lawyer and asked what our options were. Because both the house and the land were in my name, they had no claim to them, and any paper that didn't have my signature on it would be considered useless under the law. They could try and claim it was rented out, but then they'd have to move far away and hope that I'd never be able to locate them. And I knew it'd be too much trouble for a couple of old folks. They could claim it's his life achievement because he and my mother never divorced. It's technically half hers as well. This, however, is when I came up with an idea. I asked the lawyer, what if my mother filed for divorce? He said it's highly unlikely the court would reward my mother's full claim unless we could prove that he was unfaithful before the separation. To his surprise, I could. OP has receipts.
Ooh.
What?
Remember
Wait,
the-
because they took a phone.
Yeah, remember the phone that my mother
With the
brought
spicy
back from that
pizza?
day? It was smashed during the fighting, but generally still in one piece. She asked me to throw it away a few days later after my lazy A just brought it back to my place and threw it in the loft. Sufficient to say it provided us with more than enough proof of his indecency.
Nice.
Being lazy pays off.
Sometimes got to be lazy to win.
To win. We got the execution now. So, after weighing our options, I called to inform my father that I would come home the next month to make an announcement. He was eager to hear it. Upon my arrival, they were so nice and sweet and whatnot. But after I introduced my lawyer, it's like they flipped a switch and suddenly became vile and violent. I presented him with two options: relinquish any claim to the house or be served with a lawsuit. In my country, marital violations are 6 months probation minimum, up to 2 years in prison.
Riley, can you look up what country that is?
Yep.
Yeah, look up the country. Why do they never want to tell us what country it
Just
is?
tell us. You think that we're going to find you in your country?
Yeah, come on.
Unless you're like, your country's 10 people.
Yeah, maybe if it's
Could be really
Vatican
hard.
City, maybe we could find you. But other than that, probably not.
Watch it. This is actually the Pope writing.
Yeah, dude. Pope's got tea.
Yeah, the Pope
you know,
is
you know all
a-
the confessions he hears.
The Pope is a queer man with tea, according to the story.
I mean, probably true.
I mean, according to the
I,
story.
I don't know if he's a queer man, but he definitely has tea. I mean, he's listening.
He's got tea.
He's listening to a lot of stuff.
India, Middle East, Asian cities, European cities.
Okay, man, that's a lot.
too many.
After a lot of screaming and name calling and feet stomping tantrums, he kicked us out. So naturally, I assumed he chose the latter. At the first hearing, so the hearing of the court, my mom, me, and my lawyer were present. It turned out to be another screaming contest in which he made up all kinds of lies about my mother. At some point, my lawyer leaned in to tell me that if the officer didn't stop his rantings, it's likely they were buddies and asked me to let him handle things.
So they're saying that the dad is ranting at the mom and being like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and
Yeah.
the officer isn't doing anything. And so
Yeah.
the lawyer's like, they're probably.
In cahoots. The officer told us this case wasn't a priority and it would take months to process. We wouldn't like the paperwork. It's best to settle this out of court. So yeah, the officer that is conducting the court hearings and the father are in cahoots with each other. My lawyer politely declined and told my father to expect another hearing soon under much less friendly circumstances. He tried one more tactic in between, which was calling all the relatives and telling them how my mother was a B and I was an ungrateful brat in hope of creating some kind of pressure on us. Very few of them took his side, and even if all of them did, I would have never let him get off that easy. In the second hearing, he finally cracked and agreed to my terms, which were relinquishing any claim he might have with the house and divorcing my mom. So those are the two stipulations.
Ooh.
Basically, the only person who has any claim to the house now is my mother.
Slay.
I agreed to let him keep living in it for the rest of his life, though, but not anyone else, aka his mistress, who he was basically living with.
So now he's just kind of like a renter.
Yeah.
In this place.
Yeah.
But
Which honestly is kind of nice of OP to let that happen.
Very considerate after how he treated
Yeah,
everyone.
I feel like you could like kick him out
Yeah.
for what he's been doing
Yeah.
completely. Okay, and now the revenge, because that wasn't revenge enough.
No. Right.
All right, OP's going in.
Opie's got it
Opie's
all
going
planned
in.
out. That's what the military gives you. Organization.
Yeah, that it does. Exactly.
Military. These are military tactics.
So this was where my work started. First, my sister gathered all the receipts from all the medical billings she has paid for his treatment. A few of them were missing, but we were able to put up a huge folder. I also crapped my pants learning how expensive cancer treatment could be. Not a fan. When we had a general sum of the money, we billed him for it. This is very unethical in my country since children are expected to take care of their parents, but we threw that out the window long ago. We also knew it was not a criminal case, so we just went to small court claims and then sent in the bailiffs to collect, which was just this lady. She went on with a I don't give an F attitude when he failed to comply. She sent in the thugs, by that I mean police, to start seizing assets. So I guess like they're like the father can't pay all of the cancer treatment, even though the sister started paying, and so the government's just seizing their shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like they're charging him for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
The sister is.
Say goodbye to the wooden furniture, a 27i, smart TV, a fridge, reclining massage chair. All were bought by my sister as well. He had to pay out of pocket because that lady insisted they continue seizing whatever he bought until she saw the money. Although the final amount was halved, my mother, under the eyes of the law, shared half of that for some reason, so half of the debt. It still cost him 70% of his savings. Of course, this wasn't about the money. We were just petty.
No, I think what happened here is that the OP's sister was charging him for the costs. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like, because it sounds like she sued him or something, and then they basically took all of his assets to pay for it. That's what it sounds like to me. Sure.
But I guess like what? Yeah, but the government is seizing it on their behalf.
Yes, to pay for the sister. Yes.
But yes, the government is seizing on behalf of the sister because, like, I guess she paid for all of that stuff, but I guess because she paid for it under the pretenses.
She's basically like, she's billing him stuff.
Yeah. I'm confused what that court case would be because she willingly paid.
Yeah, I also am confused. I don't know how she would be able to get that money when she did, she willingly paid for it.
Looking back, I should have taken the recliner because my back hurts like a bee, even though I'm only in my late 20s. But after that was done, I contacted my local factory to file a report. Remember the sweet pension he got with the condition that he behave accordingly? Well, clearly someone had been a bad boy and they let him go with it, even though it was a small town and everyone knew everything because nobody ever filed a report. But that's not the case anymore. I gave them a very detailed folder with pictures from his phone to say they were spicy sleepule was an understatement.
So there's kind of a morality clause for the military pension.
They immediately set up a hearing and he was stripped of his rank, making his pension down to just over half the original amount. I know this because old folks gossip like their lives depend on it, and my mother is not excluded. She was very happy hearing about that. It's all she talked about for a month. I was about to be done here, but a week later, my sister called to tell me that my aunt came to her door to berate her and her children. My sister was working from home. My mom also lived there, but had gone out for some reason. My sister just called security to kick her out and warned me she could go for me next. I was seeing blood, not because of some lame booty Karen that could cause some inconvenience at most, but because she was screaming at my niece and nephew. As a gay man, I know full well the bloodline ends with me, so I put all of my love into those little guys to the point that if I had been there, I would have bitten her head off. So I dug a little around and found out my aunt was knees deep in debt. She was hoping she could leech some money off my father. It's not from the money he made selling the house, then from his big bank account. Since neither of those was available anymore, she was angry and thought she could lay it on my sister. You want to know what a man could do with determination and raging hatred? Well, I never set up an online social presence, mainly because up to my 18th birthday, I was too poor to have a phone, and the military taught me it wasn't needed. But for a special occasion, I made an exception. I created a Facebook account, befriended her. I didn't even have to pretend to be anyone, since old people apparently accept friend requests from anyone.
Now he's catfishing
She had this vibe where she'd throw off her money and her vacations and her items like a wealthy person. From my mother and her trusty gossip circle, I knew that she always told whoever she owed money that she was struggling, so I figured out she must be blocking them. The next part was easy. I just had to send all of the selfies to everyone she's owing to. I didn't have to declare myself since I was literally on a throwaway account, so it's just this really long line of messages that showed my aunt spending her money lavishly. For the next following month, she was threatened not with legal actions like I did, but with much more sinister actions. She would have thugs, not the police, throw gifts at her door, like paint, fish sauce, and sometimes literal crap.
Dude, this chick is gonna end up on the Squid Games.
Oh my God. Is OP going too far?
Wow. Because we were like, oh, that's nice that OP let his dad live in the house, even though he's treated him so badly.
I mean, it seems like OP's trying to get this person unalived.
No. We don't stop here. We keep going. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know.
I think
OP
it's a
is
little bit too
systematically destroying everyone who messed with him.
much. Yeah.
Because the line here is getting justice for his mom getting cheated on, but now he's
Yeah.
getting all the justice that is available to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a little
Yeah.
bit too much. But I would love to know what you guys think. Yeah, put your
Yeah.
answers in the chat. But
Just insofar as
Feels-
that he's yeah.
feels a little bit
Karina
too much.
says he's going too far. He's putting her in danger.
yeah,
Mm.
she finally figured out what I was gonna do when I told her to find me a list of all the people she's owing to. Oh my god! And now there's the ProRevenge.
That wasn't the pro revenge. I hope that I never get on OP's bad side.
Oh my god!
What?
As much as I want to take credit for this, the idea wasn't mine. Forgive me, for I once again had to lay out a bit of background. So, my father's side of the family is this very traditional family where you would have a person acting as the head of the family, deciding things that matter. This was way before the war, so obviously they don't do such things anymore. I imagine the Vietnam War. But the head of the family still has a certain voice, and there's this once-in-a-year ceremony where we gather together to pay tribute to our ancestors. During the ceremony, the head of the family will give a speech and then some announcements like who died, who got married, who gave birth, etc. Then there will be a celebratory party where we basically get wasted. My great-grandfather was the head. He had 3 sons, and 2 of them passed away during the war. So my grandfather took the mantle, then my father, and eventually me. The whole side of the family is in another town that's like 3 hours away, mainly because my grandfather didn't expect to be the head, so he moved out seeking opportunities. I found these gatherings redundant and unnecessary, but that year I was actually looking forward to it, probably for the revenge. My father tried to keep the actual date hidden. It wasn't fixed, but generally somewhere between June. But he seriously underestimated my mother. She doesn't have a gossip circle. She has an infinite number of them. So my mother, me, and my sister's family all head back for it. The trip is 14 hours in total, but the result was so worth it. We timed it so we would come 2 days earlier than my father. Again, thanks to her gossip circle, I guess getting all the information.
She's got like a whole.
She has her little birds throughout the city.
She's like a rat king. She's collecting all these secrets.
Yeah. This side of the family had never heard the full story, only the version my father gave them, which was that he had left my mother in good faith. I actually gave my father some credits for not bad-mouthing my mom. After weighing all the pros and cons, we decided to let my mother loose. And she's exceptional when it came to relaying details about her personal tragedies. I kid you not. If I posted her story word for word, by the time next week, there would be a global justice for Thunderkirk's mother movement. It took just one day for everyone to know what an a-hole my father had been. The look on his face when he arrived with my aunt and my grandmother and saw my family already there was priceless. He got the stink eye from everyone for the rest of the day. Nobody would initiate conversations with him, so he's just sitting there like a sad dog. Now I know what they say about passed away horses, but the idea was brilliant not to follow through.
I don't think OP ever wastes an opportunity to
get revenge.
To beat a passed away horse.
Oh my God. My uncle, let's call him Oliver, came up with this, and the hierarchy is equal to my father. In the event that my branch doesn't have a male successor, 100% what's going to happen, his branch will be the head of the family. He told me I should take up the mantle of the head. It was very sudden. I didn't have a speech ready. My father was supposed to do that, but Oliver told me I could just tell whatever I want because nobody really paid attention to that thing anyway. All the other elders were okay with it. The speech wasn't even the best thing. At the celebratory party, people will be assigned tables based on the family tree. Heads of each branch will sit together. Their children sit together. The elders sit together, so on and so forth. This sounds very like royal. Like
Yeah.
this sounds intense, like the familial dynamic. Because I was elevated to the head of my branch, I would be sitting at the big boy table. My father didn't even get to sit at that supposed table because miraculously it was full, even though I could have sworn there weren't 20 of us, and each table can sit up to 10. He had to sit at a regular table with my aunt and a bunch of nasty widows who didn't hold back their snarky comments. So I was told. I didn't think he'll ever come back to one of those anytime soon.
I'm kind of.
So OP was kind of promoted in the family.
I do think it's funny though that was the pro revenge because that does seem more tame than all of the other revenge.
Yeah, dude. The other revenge was like catfishing everyone.
He's like, so like the normal revenge, I catfished my aunt and people might unalive her now. And like the, pretty good revenge was getting the law to take all of my dad's assets from him, but the pro-revenge was making my father sit at a different table.
Yeah, I don't think that's
we should reorganize that.
Yeah, I think we should reorganize that. But
Well, it might be a cultural thing.
I think it might be.
that's true.
I think it might be
getting,
really important.
maybe getting threatened by the mafia is not
more
as bad
normal
as
than
getting
moving.
in your familial dynamic.
Yeah,
But,
because
no.
in the Southern Baptist Church, if you don't sit where you usually sit, people get irritated. They're like, "Oh, that's like my seat," but they don't say anything, and they kind of be passive aggressive.
But we still got a little bit more to the story.
Let's run it.
The aftermath. My father is now just a miserable old man. His mistress left him because, surprisingly, she was after his money. He's living in our old house with next to nothing. His retirement money, though halved, was good enough for him to live by. And last I heard, his cancer has come back. And obviously, this time my sister won't be paying for it anymore. He had tried to initiate contact with my mother, trying to make amends. We had to block his number and his profile on my mother's account because she actually considered it. She has her soft side. My aunt, which OP definitely does not have. My aunt has to sell her house to pay all the debt, or else they just continue harassing her. She now lives in a small house she bought off with the rest of her money. I felt bad for her husband because he's actually chill and quite nice, but he's not the most decisive, and therefore he doesn't really confront her. I hope he's doing better. I have no empathy for her only son, though. Damn. Let's just say the apple doesn't far fall from the tree. So how do I know all this? My mother's gossip circle.
Of course.
I left my grandmother out of this because she's very old. She's not demented in any way. She's perfectly sane, but she loved her son too much to admit he's in the wrong. Also, she was very nice and sweet to me growing up. A lot of my good memories are with her. I'm sad because he doesn't see my mother the same. I also stopped talking to her and would only visit once during Lunar New Year. She's lived in the small house she and my grandfather built on the land that's now in my name. When she and my father are passed away, I will carry out their wish to build an altar for her and my grandfather. Whether or not my father will be included is still up for debate. Just to clarify, all of this wouldn't have happened if he acted in good faith. He could have called all of us back, announced that he'd be leaving my mother, and I wouldn't have given a dang. Instead, he tried to scream and punch his way through it, and I acted in response. Also, I deleted that Facebook account. I'm crazy, but not that crazy. By the way, if you want to be crazy about us, you can listen to full episodes of this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You can listen while doing other things. You can hear our voices at all times. So
In
just
your
look up
ears.
OK Storytime wherever you get your podcasts. There's another relevant update, but dang, OP is getting their revenge.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see that 84% of chat did not think that was too far.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Man,
Chat's like,
man.
they only got death threats? Like,
Yeah.
that's not enough.
It's not enough.
That's not enough.
Man, I mean, like, to be clear, obviously the people that received this, revenge or this vengeance, they weren't great. They weren't good people. They were bad people, but
Yeah.
it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Dutch Cassandra says, I'm Vietnamese of origin, but never lived there. Thank goodness. All the BS they have to deal with is toxic AF. I am not Vietnamese either, but I did. I know. Surprising, Sophia. But I did go on a solo travel through Vietnam, and I met this girl in a coffee shop that I hung out with for a little bit while I was there. And she wanted to leave her town and explore, but she felt like she had to live with her mother and take care of her. And
Yeah,
so
well,
there's just
a lot of
an
cultural
intense duty to
around-
family
yeah.
there.
Familial thing.
Yeah, which I can understand why, in the context of all that, why getting demoted might be pro-revenge rather than just
It's
revenge.
like getting excommunicated from the church.
Exactly. But we got a little bit more to this story. So, also about the small court claim. As I've mentioned, these kinds of claims are highly unethical in my country, so the law is also very slippery. You just have to prove that someone owes you money or for something. It doesn't have to be big. I made it sound easy, but in reality, we had to go through 3 different hearings. The judge advised us to settle out of court the first 2 since my father wasn't present. The whole thing took almost a year before a claim was rewarded. My sister gave birth to my nephew around this time. In short, we found a loophole and utilized it. Also, yes, I'm Vietnamese.
Woo!
Infidelity is definitely a crime here. In
Boom.
fact, it's the first time I've heard it's not a crime somewhere else. So thank you, Reddit, for the newfound knowledge. Also, clearly, this wasn't a spur of moment thing. I have thought about it like what we should do if things got messy, but nothing concrete because of my mother's disapproval.
Opie's thought about everything.
We didn't wake up and decide to scorch the earth. We planned.
We planned. We planned and plotted to scorch the earth.
Oh man. Wow. That was intense. OP went ham.
Yeah, OP went scorched earth.
Yeah.
For sure.
Shout out OP for giving us a good story.
Good story to start the stream off.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
But we got another story in this episode. My father demanded I pay for the house he bought for his stepdaughter. So I went off on him.
If it's not your house, you don't have to pay.
So a few years ago, I posted about how my father cheated on my mother. Coming out the gate strong, a little cheating, always hurt somebody. And how I retaliated to him financially and socially. Wait.
What?
Is this from the same person?
No.
This is from the same person.
It's from the same person?
This is an update.
What?
This is an update. So that last one was from a few years ago. This is an update.
It's about the house.
A few years ago, I posted about how my father cheated on my mother and how I retaliated against him financially and socially. Again, this is related to that last story. This is an update from the last story. This will serve as somewhat of an update, as there have been developments ever since. For those who want to go back and read the post, I have some good news. About 5 months after I posted the story, my cousin reached out. He had been fired from his job, but he had met a wonderful girl, and that really changed his perspective. By the way, this comes from Thunder Kurg on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So, growing up, he was an only child, and his parents were rich enough he didn't need to care about school. While I and my sister thrived academically, he made no effort to even try to graduate from high school. As being a legacy meant that he would always have a place in the local plant, the one that's big enough to support the entire town. That was until he found out how his family was struggling financially. His mom had spent all their savings to keep an unnecessary lavish lifestyle, and the local plant, after 3 decades, decided to stop hiring people without a degree or a trade certificate, legacy or not. My cousin was working as a bus operator at the time, but got let go and couldn't find a job, and that's when this girl changed his life.
So this is the cousin that OP said he didn't like.
Yeah, this is cousin that was like, it doesn't fall far from the tree.
Got you.
Well, she pointed out how helpless he was, being a golden child, not having to do anything growing up, and he listened to her. He reached out trying to make amends, and I and my sister accepted it.
Whoa.
He went back to community college, got a degree, and started working at the plant late August. That's one relationship saved. At his wedding, my aunt also wanted to make amends. She had a falling out with my father, and perhaps her son had talked some senses into her, so she reached out and wanted to talk. Now, we're much more reserved about this one because knew her antics so well, but she was quite genuine and understanding when we said we couldn't let her back into the grace as easily as her son, the good graces. We went low contact for a while. She's made efforts to be friendly to my niece and nephew and never showed signs of any malicious intent. So it seems like 2 for 2. Relationships kind of getting better.
OP's winning. The revenge turned around and bloomed flowers.
Mm-hmm. We're still keeping a short leash, but I want to believe that people can change. And so far, she's not given me any reason to think otherwise. That's 2 for 2. The third is my grandmother. She's 85 this April. Among the grandchildren, I am closest to her. So it pained me to have to go low contact with her since our last interaction. She had also had a falling out with my father because he was trying to get her to sign over her estate. Maybe a story for another time, but she was having none of it. So they fought. In the end, he went AWOL. They did not see each other for over a year until he showed up at my cousin's wedding. At said wedding, my father made an effort of avoiding me and my sister, but approaching my brother-in-law to brag that he bought a house and that he has his mistress living in it. We did not think much of it because his pension is hefty. To those who read my previous post, even though it went down 40%, it's still almost as double that of my aunt. So he can pretty much afford like anything. But then, after we're on talking terms, my aunt let it slip that he had to take a loan to pay for that. So it's maybe not as much as he thought because he's going into debt or loan debt getting the house.
But he was originally living in OP's house or like
but that was too small.
House.
He wanted something big.
Well, but also I don't think he's allowed to live with his mistress there.
No,
either. So
that's why I guess he had to get a new place. But his name is not on the deed. It's the oldest son of the mistresses instead. So he's kind of using the mistress's son to get the loan. At this point, we figured that he's being scammed, but yeah, not our problem. Because of a series of incidents at my job, I was offered a much more secure and high-paying position. I will admit that this is truly an opportunity I thought I'd never have for at least another 3 years, but perhaps one can only have so many tragedies. With the raised salary, my mom's money from divorce, and my sister's help, I was able to put a down payment for a house for me and my mother, even though the housing market in my city was as crazy as ever. Even though I'm now eyeballs deep in debt, I'm proud of myself for having a house to my name. My father didn't contribute anything, and frankly, I didn't want to take anything, even if he had asked. Around late November of last year, my childhood friend, with whom my cousin and I are very close, passed away from a car accident. It was very sudden. My cousin called me at 2 a.m, and before I knew it, I was home for his funeral.
Ugh.
Needless to say, I was in a bad place mentally leading up and following his funeral. So I decided to move back home until after Lunar New Year, which is 2 weeks away. Take care of my grandmother, but I was also hoping the change of scenery would do me some good. My mother stayed to look after the kids. My sister's house is literally within walking distance from mine, so she'll be fine. And 7 days after said funeral, my father shows up at my doorstep. I was very much still grieving, so I was in no mood to play games. I shut down any effort at pleasantries and just stared at him while he mumbles about traveling or some crap. Then he told me that his mistress's second child, a girl, is attending college in my city next summer and suggested we meet and be friends. I just laughed and told him to F off. That's when he brought up the house. Apparently, the precious little stepdaughter doesn't want to stay in a college housing campus, nor does she want to share an apartment with friends or other renters. She wants a whole house for herself. That's crazy. In the middle of the worst housing economy in our country's history. Of course, having taken a loan for the house he bought for his stepson, he could never afford buying a house in the capital city where prices go up by the hour. In an attempt to please his mistress, he came to me asking for money. I kid you not. This man literally dropped my sister off in a foreign city and told her to fend for herself when she went to go to college for the first time. And now he wanted to bend over backwards for a child that isn't even his, while asking for money from his son, who he loudly claimed that he'd rather see passed away. I truly can't comprehend the gears in his geek head.
What?
Little did he know, he poked me at the worst moment possible. Oh, you don't want to poke OP. OP will go,
No.
man. I was still grieving from a lost friend, and I ripped him a new one, detailing things I didn't even know where it came from. I was mentally checked out when my mouth did the work, and towards the end, I cracked my voice a little. He tried to argue a bit, but after my aunt and cousin showed up, they live nearby, he bolted. Last month, I haven't heard from him since. Not that I care anyway. Work is busy, and I have Lunar New Year to prepare for. By the way, you can prepare for listening to us every single second of every day by just going to our podcast and typing OK Storytime wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can listen while doing other stuff.
True dat.
But there's a little relevant update that I'm just going to drive right into.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, kind of shocking that the dad was like, I know my son has crippled me or tried to cripple me financially, cast me out of the family, but I'm going to go ask him for money.
Hey,
That'll
you know
work.
Sometimes every shot you don't take is a shot missed.
So
You
yeah,
know?
well, OP's not missing any shots.
OP's not missing any shots. Neither's the dad. The dad's taking every shot.
Yeah,
He's missing a lot, but he's
missing a
taking
lot.
every shot.
OP's hitting all of the shots. The dad is missing
Yeah.
maybe every single one.
I'll admit that encounter didn't do me any good. It stings, to be honest, having your father prioritize a child that's not even his over his son and daughter. I've had sleepless nights over it, trying to think of a good reason, maybe something we did or something in his life that was so unsatisfying that he had to seek it elsewhere and not within his own family. I've come to accept that even though I always say I'm over it, deep down, I'm still hoping for a reunion, hoping that one day he will come to his senses and try to make amends. It's a long shot, but I hope for such a day. I'm not letting my guard down for 1 second. If anything happens, I'm more vindictive than ever.
I'm scared.
But I have hopes.
I'm frightened. I'm frightened for the day that something
God.
more happens because OP
Oh my God.
scares me. OP scares me.
OP is a little cray cray.
A little cray
A little
cray.
cray cray. But
But if you had OP on your side,
I mean, there's nothing that OP wouldn't do for you. Here, question for chat.
question.
I kind of have a policy of like, if someone is super vindictive, I kind of like am a little scared to be friends with them because, and that was actually one of the reasons that the last person I was like seeing, like I'm like, oh, I don't know if like I want to keep seeing them, was because they were super vindictive, hella loyal, and like super hardworking, great
Seems
in a
like
lot of
this is
ways.
OP.
But like I feel like when you're too vindictive, I'm just worried that's going to be thrust upon
Yeah.
me at some point, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like when you talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I've dropped all of my friends," and like, or they are always talking about this person that they hate, and they're like trying to, it's just like it's a lot.
Yeah. I feel like vindictiveness is one of like I think it's like a not that great of a quality, because you never know when that
We'll flip
that,
around to you.
yeah, well, and it will flip around to you, because no one's perfect. You probably make someone unhappy at some point, and if they're vindictive, like they're going, that power will be put to you. So yeah, I'm a little wary of it, but I'm curious what you guys think. Is vindictiveness a good quality or not?
Yeah.
Caitlin Van Campus says it's a character trait. It'll come back to you no matter how good of friends you are.
Riel says it's valid to be concerned over that trait. However, if you own up to your own mistakes, then you should be fine. Yes, but I do think with some people they aren't they hold grudges. So even if you do own up to your mistake, they're not going to forgive you. Like there's no like 3 strikes. It's just like one thing, and you're like, oof, gone. Pinky Deslayer says, most people who have wronged me, don't speak to me. I don't necessarily think I'm vindictive, but I am very petty. And Nicole Lynn says, if they are constantly vindictive towards me, then one person, yeah, run. But if they speak vindictively about just one person and only one person, they may be a nice person who's finally pushed too far.
That is true. That is true.
It's just seeing how they behave. Just watching that behavior, of course.